We talked about who's going to have the best rookie season out of all the cornerbacks. But now we're going to talk about who's going to have the best career out of not just the cornerbacks. We're going to throw some safeties in this as well. Y'all know what to do. Keep it locked right here. Locked On NFL Draft. Let's go.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, we want to thank you for making this show your first listen of the day. I'm your host, standing alone again. Still got my guy, Ryan Tracy. He's out doing his thing, moving, just bought a new house. Excited for him and everything he has to go get his whole setup back, right? He's been kind of doing things out of a dungeon, but shout out to my guy, Ryan Tracy. Can't wait for him to come back. But we're talking about defensive backs from the 2022 class and not just the cornerbacks as we talked about before. Talked about who was going to be the best their rookie year. Now, we're throwing some safeties in the mix here, and let's jump straight into it. All right, y'all, so let's get into it. The number one defensive back from this class, the guy who will have the best career, and this is going to be crazy because I wasn't quite as high on him as other people, but I love where he went, and I think that this is going to go extremely well. They draft well. We're going with Baltimore Ravens rookie safety Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. This is a guy who obviously everybody saw the measurables and everything jump off the charts, right? 6'4", 220 pounds. Vertical jump was crazy. We saw all his closing speed and the playmaking ability just in general. The versatility to be able to play out in space and around the line of scrimmage. But he got knocked. He got knocked big time because of a poor 40-yard dash time. And not just poor at the combine. The combine one, it was, people thought he would run better, 4.4s and whatnot. He ended up running closer to a 4.6. Then he went to his pro day and ran 4.7 and 4.71. That did not help him. So because of that, I think a lot of people thought, man, it's going to drop a little bit. I do think, come on now, he's drafted, 14th overall or in that range. So it's not like he dropped a ton. But there are a lot of people that are thinking, you know what, Kyle Hamilton, he's going to be a top 5 pick in this class. I think the 40-yard dash, I kind of hurt him a little bit. So he lost a little money. But sometimes when you do, quote-unquote, drop, as we saw with Lamar Jackson, you go to a great organization like the Baltimore Ravens, I think it helps you. So he definitely got helped here. And I think that's going to be a great fit for him. First of all, again, you go to a secondary where you have some guys that truly understand the game. People like Marcus Peters, obviously Marlon Humphrey. You got guys in that organization where they're going to really help to make sure that you are ready for everything that's coming. And, losing your defensive coordinator, we'll see how that kind of affects some of these guys and how they play on the back end. But in general, I just love the landing spot. And because I love the landing spot, I got to bump him up in our overall rankings here. Baltimore Ravens, when you go there, and as long as you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to be in an awesome situation to have a great career. And I think with his versatility, his playmaking skills, I think that's one thing that's going to happen right away. He's going to hit the ground running. Again, in the initial rookie year rankings, I talked about the cornerbacks. If I had to throw in safeties as well into that category, I think there's a chance he's rookie of the year. And I need to look at the BetOnline odds. I know we have BetOnline coming on right now. Who's going to be the BetOnline? And I need to look this up right now. So right now on BetOnline.net, they have Kyle Hamilton at plus 700 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And that's something that I'll probably take because, again, I love where he's going. I think they're going to set him up for success. You talk about an organization that has great structure, that has just done all the right things to put team players in position to consistently be good and win there. It's definitely Baltimore. I really like it. I think that Kyle Hamilton, he's going to go there and he's going to do terrific. Now I'm going to throw another safety in here. This is a guy that isn't a part of the rankings, so don't get this confused, but I just think someone who will play well, didn't make my top 5 here, but Lewis Seen, going to the Minnesota Vikings, talking about a safety with playmaking ability, all the athleticism. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Darnell Savage coming out. The year he came out, Darnell Savage going to Green Bay Packers, and we've seen over the last couple of years, okay, starting to get a little interceptions, the takeaways and things going, and being able to utilize that athleticism, he did not make my top 5 in the sense of guys who I thought were going to just hit the ground running or have top 5 best careers, but just to kind of throw out another safety in there that I think is going to play extremely well. A guy who is versatile. I think he fits today's game with his ability to cover. He was actually my safety 1 in this class. Being able to play too high, being able to come down. I think he can do some things with match and run with routes vertically. His closing speed is crazy, whether it's versus the pass, whether it's against the run. I think he does those things extremely well. So Lewis Cine, that's a guy right there who he could have easily made this top 5 today, left him off, but I do think he's a guy that's going to do extremely well. So I'm excited to watch him. And another guy that's in a great situation. Okay, got Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith, I don't know how much longer the Minnesota Vikings are going to hold on to him, but if we're talking about a guy who can really teach a guy, and that's a big part of it. When I was with the New York Jets, and it wasn't like I was there for a year or 2 years or anything like that, but there was a guy by the name of Antonio Cromartie, and it was so good for me to have a guy like Antonio Cromartie who could pull me to the side and just, hey, this is why we do this. This is why we do that. Do this. Move this way. All those things, right? Like, just all the things that go into really being that mentor and having someone with a great mindset. I didn't get that from some of the other guys. I didn't get that from some of the other fellow rookies. I didn't get that from some of the 1-2 year type guys. But a guy like Antonio Cromartie, who was coming off of some great years, to be able to pull me aside and get that knowledge from a veteran and even just be able to watch and see how they prepare. To watch him, hop in the when I show up to the facility, he would be in this ice tub, like taking an ice bath, reading a book with his reading glasses on. I was like, man, I just thought that was the craziest thing ever. But when you talk about a guy just preparing his body the best he can to get ready and his mind as well, Cromartie did that. And those are things that I believe that a guy like Lewis Cine and Kyle Hamilton, they're going to learn those things from the veterans that are in their organization. So Lewis Cine with the Minnesota Vikings, being able to learn from Harrison Smith. Don't have him in my top 5. He definitely could be in there. I think he's going to do well. But Kyle Hamilton, he lands at number 1. Number 1 in this overall DB rankings from the last class. He's going to have the best career. That's what I'm thinking. All right. Now, we got more guys to get to. Can't wait to get to those guys. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about BetOnline. And this is your number 1 source for all your sports and betting needs. And you can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. Listen, this is an NFL draft show. So I talked to you already about some of the Rookie of the Year odds. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Kyle Hamilton, plus 700. We just talked about him. That might be a guy that you want to put in there. Another guy that will, we'll see how he does. I think he's going to do well. He will land on this list at some point. Derek Stingley Jr., his odds to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, plus 1,400. So if you want to throw a couple dollars at one of these guys, go make you some money right now. All right. BetOnline is your continuous source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check on all of your favorite sports, events, MMA, boxing, golf, all that good stuff. And you're going to find all this when you head over to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action going on at BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, guys, let's get into my next guy. And again, I told you that this is an overall DB thing, not just cornerbacks. Who's going to have the best career? Second guy up, Marcus Jones out of Houston. He was my second guy in the rankings of cornerbacks for rookie year. I think he's going to do terrific. And I'm assuming BetOnline probably doesn't even have player props on Marcus Jones. But if you want to know about a sleeper, I think that's a guy who definitely should be in the mix. Listen, I talked about Kyle Hamilton and Lewis Cine and some of the veterans that they had. Well, who else has great veterans to help them with everything that they're doing? Come on, man. New England. And not just with veterans, with guys like Mccrary and some of those guys, but they're coaching. They are coached up better and harder than anyone in the NFL. From everything I hear, some of the buddies I have around the league, some of my buddies that have played for the New England Patriots, they coach you up a certain way. You got to walk into meetings and you got to be ready. I mean, and not just walk into meetings. They have days off, right? So NFL, for those of you who don't know, let's say you play on Sunday. play on Sunday. You go in Monday, it's kind of a recovery day, plus you watch film. Tuesdays are days off. Well, not for New England, all right? Tuesday is supposed to be a day off, and this is one of those mandatory but not mandatory type deals. You walk into a meeting room, they're already getting ready and reading the scouting report for the next opponent. And then the coaches are just going to fire off questions, and you are required to know what your responsibilities are. So, I mean, this is a team that they prepare at the highest level, and Marcus Jones is going to get that. This is a guy who is a little bit older, right? He had a few things working against him. One was his size, only 5'8". Another thing, he had some injuries, didn't get the test. And also his age. I believe he's going to be like 24 years old as a rookie. So a little bit older, but being older comes a little bit more wisdom. And I think going to the New England Patriots, an organization where he's going to really be able to be used the way he should. And what I mean by that is he's going to play outside. He's going to play in the slot. They do a terrific job of matching guys up with skill set. All right. They know Marcus Jones has a specific strength of his, which, I mean, it's cover guys and cover guys extremely well. That's what they're going to do with him. They're going to put him in those spots to consistently win, right? What's going to be the best spot for a guy like Marcus Jones? And when you have receivers of different sizes and whatnot, you want guys that match up with that guy very well. But nobody does it better than New England. They put their guys in advantageous situations, and they're going to continue to do that with Marcus Jones. All right. Now, he has to stay healthy. He's coming off a double shoulder surgery. But I do believe once he's on the field and we get to see him move around and how he covers, I think he's going to do a terrific job. And not just as a rookie. I think this is going to be something that holds true throughout his entire career. Right? Once you get started and you have those good tendencies, those good traits, being good, being the second best defensive back in this class doesn't necessarily mean that you got to be this all-pro guy. Can you have a 10 to 12 year career or 8 to 12 year career? Saying his body holds up. And I believe he's a guy that's going to be starting off on the right foot when you're going to New England Patriots. So my number 2 guy in this class, defensive backs, we got Marcus Jones heading to the New England Patriots out of Houston. My 3rd guy, Derek Stingley Jr. All right, Derek Stingley Jr. could easily be the number 1 guy in this class. I think he has all the traits, all the ability. The biggest thing that is just the unknown with him is he going to prepare the right way? Is he going to prepare his body the right way? He's been dealing with some injuries. Nobody's ever going to question his ability to cover. No one is ever going to question his ability to turn and run with guys. Nobody's going to question his ability to make plays. He did all those things and did it at the highest level in the SEC. Shoot, they had Christian Fulton on that team at LSU. And Fulton, he was a dog. He played very well. And he was not better than Derek Stingley Jr. He was not. And Fulton was good. All right, so you look at where Derek Stingley Jr. is, and of course, he got drafted extremely high. We're talking about, number 3 overall to the Houston Texans. They drafted him based off of what they believe he can do. But there's other aspects of who he is that he has to just clean up. I believe he's a guy who wants it. He was a guy who they were looking forward to potentially playing both ways. I heard some rumors of potentially letting him play receiver as well. We never got there because he dealt with injuries, but now you got to get that 1-2 back. And I don't want to just hold it against him. When you are LSU and your coaching staff is just blowing things up and your coach announces in the middle of the season, hey man, this is my last year here. And players start opting out. Players don't even want to play. We saw that the year before, even with Jamar Chase. He had an amazing rookie year in the NFL, but he was out there first. And then he was like, nope, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm going to opt out now, right? Yeah, players opting out left and right makes it a little tough. And I think maybe, coming off of his true freshman year where LSU was everything. They ran through all of college football. You go through that with Joe Burrow and those guys and them doing all kind of amazing things. And then now from week to week, you have to try to figure out how to get yourself up. Some guys kind of struggle with that. And when you're going to Houston Texans, you might still kind of struggle with that. So he's going to have to figure out different ways to motivate himself. And if he can do that, we're talking about a guy who's going to have a terrific rookie year. And not just rookie year, but NFL career. All right. I still believe in Derek Stingley Jr. Clearly, Houston Texans taking him number 3 overall. They do as well. And I have a couple more guys who I want to tell you who I believe in as well. But first, I want to tell y'all a little bit about our friends over at Dave's. All right. And listen, guys, let me level with you for a little bit here. We've all been in situations at some point in our lives when, we're a little tight on cash. We need some extra money. Maybe you can only afford to put a few dollars and gallons into your gas tank. And you want to save a little bit of money for a date with someone. And you're wondering, how are you going to afford a gift? And that's where Dave can come in and help you. Or if you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling, which right now a lot of Americans are, trying to figure things out. All right, it can be stressful. And, when the unexpected expenses come up, you need someone like Dave to come and help you get out of that pinch. Hindsight is 20/20, and you can change the past. But if you could get a little help right now to help your future self, maybe you'd ask to borrow just a little cash. And that's where Dave comes in. Dave is a banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. There's more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, or catch up on some bills. And we've all been there. You can finally tackle some of those expenses and have this stressing that you've had get out of there. All right. They want to alleviate the stress that you've been having, especially when it comes to financial things. Millions of people have already downloaded the app, Dave, and they've experienced their financial relief immediately and gotten the extra cash. So if you are in a pinch and you need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as, someone helping, a helping hand for the future you. Download the Dave app right now in your app store. That's DAVE. Sign up for an extra cash account and you get up to $500 instantly. For the terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member of FDIC. The future you will thank you. All right, y'all. So let's talk about these last two guys here. We got Daxton Hill up next. Another guy who's a safety. Second safety that's on his list. First it was Kyle Hamilton. And now we got Daxton Hill, who was drafted to the Cincinnati Bengals out of Michigan. I think Daxton Hill out of Michigan, we're talking about a guy who I think fits today's day and age, safety position extremely well. He reminds me a ton of a guy that I get to watch for the last, 7-8 years? Gosh, how long has Jimmy Ward been in the NFL? But they have very similar games. And I'm curious to see if they'll play a very similar role. Daxton Hill is a guy who can cover in the slot. He was listed as a safety, but all I ever saw him do was line up in the nickel position. Now, he did that, and he did that at an extremely high level. I always look to see some of these slot guys. Can you run with slot fades? Can you cover guys vertically? Well, he did that thing, no problem. And, when you see what he ran at the combine, he ran in the 4.3s, it's like, well, of course, right? This guy can run it, but he puts it on film. He's not scared to stick his head in there and really go after and tackle guys. There was one play that always sticks out to me, man. Matter of fact, he did two things that I really liked in one play. Running with the slot fade against Indiana, extremely well. Covered it well from off coverage, which isn't easy. All right. Then he turns and runs. He has a big 6'5" quarterback running at him, tries to lower a shoulder into him, and he just scoops the quarterback, picks him up off his feet, dips him to the ground. And for a guy he wasn't able to get a head start and gain some momentum to go hit this quarterback. He was almost at a standstill, and he just stopped him dead in his tracks. I thought that was tremendous, and that's tough. And I know a lot of people that are thinking, quarterbacks are big. Quarterbacks are huge. They are a lot bigger than DBs, and they are a lot bigger than Daxton Hill, who's like 5'11", 190 pounds. So he has the physicality. He has the versatility. I believe if a team wants to play him more in the single high, two high, he can do those things. But, man, he's going to make a lot of money in that slot, being able to cover guys and be a guy that you don't have to necessarily take off the field. So because of that versatility, I think that's going to always be needed in the NFL. This is a guy who's going to play in the NFL for a long time. So, again, we're talking about guys who are going to have long, really good NFL careers. Daxton Hill, definitely one of them. Now, a guy who did not make this list, Sauce Gardner. And I love Sauce Gardner. I think he's going to be terrific. I think he's going to play extremely well. We'll see. Sometimes guys with those longer movement skills, right? 6'3", 200 pounds, to change the direction and stuff, it can be a little tough. And those guys are somewhat kind of boom or bust a little bit. So I think we're expecting boom, But, man, there definitely could be a bust. And if so, he's not going to have a great career. So that's why he didn't make this list. But the next guy who did, and again, you clearly when you look at my list, you can tell I like versatility. This last guy, Roger Mccrary, drafted by the Tennessee Titans, out of Auburn. A guy who I think really, you look on film, he had first-round film. Now, he was drafted in the second round, and it wasn't like he was drafted like really low or anything like that. Let's see. Third pick in the second round, Roger Mccrary, all right, to the Tennessee Titans. So, a guy who was drafted fairly high. I thought he could have been the first-round pick. He's a guy who could play definitely on the outside. I loved watching him at Auburn because it was like, man, I play man coverage. Let me line up in man, guard these guys, and let me run wherever they run. So you watch him against Alabama. He was targeted a ton. Some of the times, he was at a disadvantage because they knew he was playing man coverage. They would run pick routes. They would run him through almost like off coverage screens and things like that. They would do some things to pick him off and free guys up. But when it comes to just man-to-man ability, he has it. Now, where's the knock on him? His arms are extremely short. It's sub 30 inches. That's not ideal. Then he went to the combine. He didn't run extremely well. Ran in the 4.5s. And 4.55, I believe it was. And that's not terrible, but for a guy who isn't the biggest and longest guy, you want to typically run much better. And he didn't do that. Now, he did go to his pro day and ended up running a 4.47. I think that's what's going to help him. And people are like, all right, okay, he can run to some extent. Where is he going to play for Tennessee? I'm curious to see that. They did have Elijah Molden that they drafted, and I know he plays some nickel. But Roger Mccrary, he's a guy who can play in the nickel. I watched him at the Senior Bowl. He covered outside, he covered in the nickel. I think he did a terrific job at both of those spots. I think he's going to do a terrific job at doing all those things in the NFL. This is a guy who I definitely think can have a long NFL career and be really good and be a guy who maybe you end up seeing him on 3-4 teams. But if we are talking about versatility, playmaking ability, coverage skills, fit in today's NFL game, I definitely think he's a guy who will do just that. So Roger Mccrary, loved his college film. There's a little bit of Damon Arnett in there, right? And Damon Arnett was a guy who I was banking on based on his film. Film was really good. I thought he had first-round film. I thought he had third-round measurables. And we're seeing some of this with Roger Mccrary, where I thought he had first-round film, but third-round measurables. We'll see if he can overcome some of those things. Damon Arnett could not. And maybe not because of just pure on-field. I think Arnett has some stuff going on off of the field where I don't think he's in the NFL anymore. So that's unfortunate for him. Roger Mccrary, you got a chance. Here we go. But guys, I want to thank you for listening in on today's episode. Next time you listen to me, I will have my guy back with me, Ryan Tracy. And we want to thank you for making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, Locked On 49ers with myself and Brian Peacock. Locked On Chiefs with Ryan Tracy. We got all kinds of other shows across the Locked On network. So make sure you tune into those. But until then, we are out of here. Peace.